sold our family home behind his back. His lawsuit left me living in our daughter's guest room. I used to have everything: a beautiful 5-bedroom house, a stable marriage, financial security. Now I'm living in my daughter's guest room, staring at the 2 suitcases that hold what's left of my life. It wasn't supposed to end like this. I never imagined that one reckless, selfish decision would bring me to this point. I had convinced myself I was doing what was best for me, that I deserved more, that I was outgrowing my husband, my marriage, my responsibilities. But standing in this cramped space, depending on the charity of my own child, I can't ignore the truth anymore. I destroyed my life with my own hands. The beginnings of my downfall started when I gave in to greedy impulses and temptations. I committed betrayals against my husband, which I never could have imagined myself doing. He learned about my betrayal, but instead of leaving, he chose to extract maximum price from me, every last cent. Against his knowledge, I sold our family house, believing this secured my financial future. Instead, I lost everything. Now I'm the woman with nothing: no home, no marriage, no respect. And the worst part? I deserve it. My name is Lisa. I recently turned 46 years old, and I've been married to my husband, Mark, for 20 years. Life treated me well through my marriage to my decent husband. I had financial security while living in a luxurious house that others viewed as aspirational. He fulfilled every responsibility of husbandhood through his business-minded attitude and reliable character. He managed his finances by making intelligent decisions, which included thoughtful future planning, and he avoided irresponsible spending. The money he earned was dependable, but he never wasted money on ostentatious items. And in the earlier years of our marriage, I greatly admired this characteristic of his. We bought our home early in our marriage, a 5-bedroom house in a quiet, well-respected neighborhood. It was fully paid off, something Mark took pride in. He always talked about how it was our biggest investment, how it would always be there for us no matter what. And for years I believed that too. It was more than a house. It was a symbol of the life we built together. We raised our daughter there. Every corner of that house held memories. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, late-night talks in the kitchen. It was our safe place. I defied the norms of being a housewife by having a professional real estate career. Real estate became my professional focus, while I managed to succeed until I reached my position where I made enough money to support myself. My financial independence allowed me to support my family's budget as I gained complete autonomy over choices in my life. I felt pleased about the achievements I had reached. My career growth brought me into contact with women from an economic level I had never experienced before. These women belonged to a higher socioeconomic status than being fundamentally prosperous. They owned fancy automobiles in addition to sporting costly fashion items and flew freely between continents. Unlike myself, these women enjoyed unencumbered freedom because their spouses did not occupy themselves with retirement savings and accounts. At first, I saw them as inspiration. I wanted that freedom, that confidence. I started spending more time with them, going to high-end restaurants, attending social events, and traveling. It felt like a different world, one where money was meant to be enjoyed, not just saved for the future. And the more time I spent with them, the more I started to feel like I had been settling for less in my own life. Mark didn't change. After our marriage, Mark did not transform into a different person as he maintained his predictable, grounded, practical character. He liked predictable things. In his view, an unpredictable person is an untrustworthy person. So if he told you he was going to do something, he was definitely going to do it. And even if he didn't say anything, you knew he wasn't the type of person that would sit back and let things run wild. He was reliable and dependable. He paid no mind to social status and refused to waste money for superficial purposes. My transformation into a new person made me gradually dislike the way he thought about life. My perspective shifted to view him as bland and restrictive because he blocked my path toward living the lifestyle I desired. I told myself that I deserved more, that I had worked too hard to be stuck in a life where every dollar had to be accounted for. I wanted something bigger, something more exciting. And I let that feeling consume me. I never expected that my pursuit of this lifestyle would end up destroying all I had. It didn't happen overnight. The change was slow, almost unnoticeable at first. It started with small things: treating myself to more expensive clothes, justifying weekend trips with my friends, indulging in things I used to consider unnecessary. Mark never questioned me much about money. He trusted me to be responsible, and I used that to my advantage. I told myself I deserved it. I worked hard. I made my own money. So what if I was spending a little more than usual? Then, the vacation started. The trip began as weekend excursions. A short spa trip, a wine tasting tour, a shopping spree in another city. Luxury trips to Hawaii, Mexico, and throughout Europe became a normal activity after the weekend getaways began. My friends had this unique ability to present these high-end experiences as though they were regular opportunities. Their discussion about marriage shared an entirely different perspective from the way I typically thought about marriage. To them, having a husband meant obtaining financial capability, which served as the pathway to life improvements. Each woman had her personal finances, yet chose to tap into their husband's wealth without delay to enhance her standards of living. I started seeing my own marriage through their eyes. And the more I compared, the more I felt like I was missing out. Mark was dependable, yes, but he wasn't exciting. He didn't whisk me away on spontaneous trips. He didn't buy me expensive jewelry or plan elaborate date nights. Our life was predictable bills, savings, home maintenance, the same weekend routines. I told myself that I was still young, that I wasn't ready to settle for a life that felt so plain. That's when I met Ethan. My husband had opposite traits to the man who became my lover. Confident, flashy, wealthy. As a seasoned real estate investor, he stood out in the industry because his reputation stretched through the sector, yet he loved entering any space. Our first encounter was at a networking event. I was on my lonesome, having a glass of champagne, when someone suddenly told me that I was taking down the champagne a bit too quickly. I looked around and saw Ethan. My goodness, he was so sharply dressed, he made my husband look homeless. From the onset, I knew he was a man who invested a lot in how he looked. I told him it wasn't his business how quickly I gulped my champagne, and he told me that if I wanted to get drunk, whiskey was the way to go. And he had a bottle of whiskey in hand, the high-end stuff. I liked his initiative and appreciated his effort. I tried to blow him off by telling him that whiskey was too strong and bitter for me, and he chuckled and said it was my loss. He turned to walk away. I couldn't believe this man. He was practically seducing me. I called him to a stop and asked for whiskey glasses. We shared a few drinks while he made me laugh and think really deeply about my life. My husband was one of the hosts of the event, so he was quite busy. From that night on, Ethan and I became closer. That one meeting transformed something inside me as soon as we began conversing. The man exuded charming qualities while he used seductive methods while being very capable with people. His special ability made women feel like they were the most exciting person present when he interacted with them. At first, I convinced myself that we were just friends. I told myself it was harmless. I had met plenty of men before, and it never meant anything. But Ethan was different. He fed into the part of me that had started to resent my life with Mark. He talked about the importance of living in the moment, of not settling, of surrounding yourself with people who elevate you. And the more we talked, the more I believed him. This began as friendly lunches which progressed to nighttime phone conversations. I kept repeating to myself that our connection was fine. We were just talking. The two professionals spent time exchanging real estate knowledge through the exchange of ideas and anecdotes. Something inside me understood fully well what I was engaged in. I recognized that Mark would perceive any dating activity as something immoral if he discovered it. And then, one night, I crossed the line that I was so scared to cross. Ethan arranged a private party that took place in an elite club. Mark would never set foot into such an establishment, which stood out as being both too flashy and too extravagant. My excuse to Mark was that it was a business gathering that had a lot of experts in fields similar to mine coming in from all over the country. I left the house without second-guessing anything. Something in my heart felt weird that night. I was anxious, which was weird because I am a confident person. I experienced an absolute change within myself during that evening. I think I was anxious because I was getting a vibe. I could feel that something was going to happen. The way Ethan was looking at me and smiling at me. The way he bit his lips and held my waist when we danced. You could say I had a premonition. As the night ran late, Ethan placed his hand on mine and spoke softly into my ear and concluded by gently biting my earlobe. I made no attempt to prevent him. In fact, I moaned and reached for a chunk of his hair. I didn't even hesitate. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Excitement, freedom, a rush of adrenaline. We kissed from the hall to his hotel room, and we had the most passionate and the longest night ever. All my anxiety fell away, and I enjoyed the night like it was my last. I did things that night that I didn't even know I could do. It was like being with Ethan brought out a side of me that had been dying to come out, the adventurous side. After that wondrous night, I thought I would feel guilty, but when I woke up the following morning, I didn't feel a shred of guilt. Instead, I had nothing but relief. I felt loose, like my joints were properly oiled. I felt lighter, like a load had been lifted off me. I felt like I had truly escaped from the dreary, confining existence that had been surrounding me. And that was just the beginning. After that explorative night, the secret meetings escalated into wholehearted relationships. We rented hotel rooms and took weekend trips while having moments of intimacy in secret locations. I developed an intense obsession with this excitement. Ethan excelled at treating me with special attention, unlike what Mark ever provided. His gestures included giving me presents and introducing me to new experiences that enhanced my sense of being the most important person to him. My lies grew more frequent while I invented various excuses to be out in the evening away from my home. I believed completely that I earned this experience. The time I spent away from love had to be replaced through these risky relationships of late. But the truth was, I had completely lost myself. I didn't see it then, but looking back, I was already on the path to destroying everything I had built. And the worst part? I didn't care. Not yet. I still find it hard to understand the simple way I surrendered to that imaginary reality. Through his approach, Ethan bestowed upon me a feeling of destiny for greatness. He discussed wealth power along with success in a way which implied I was denying these things to myself. According to his view, I appeared foolish because my marital bond prevented me from attaining the true life I deserved. I started to believe him. He would take me to luxury properties, showing me million-dollar homes and telling me I could have all of it if I just let go of the things that were weighing me down. He made it seem so simple. Why was I living in a house that felt more like a relic of my past than a part of my future? Why was I staying with a man who wanted to save money instead of spending it? The more time I spent with Ethan, the more I convinced myself that Mark was the reason I wasn't living the life I truly wanted. The two of us planned to construct our future together as he explained. I felt that I no longer required my husband who had refused to see things my way and treat me with the level of class I required. I had decided to be free from my marriage. Ethan's strategy included investments and business prospects, which could generate unbelievable wealth for me, and I loved the way his mind worked. One must release their former way of living before entering their desired future life. I was in love with Ethan now, and I wanted to create a life with him. He was exactly what I wanted, what I needed. My life required me to abandon my marital commitment. It was clear that I had outgrown Mark. Getting rid of the house became necessary as part of the step to leave the marriage. At first I hesitated. Mark loved that house. He saw it as the foundation of our marriage, our biggest investment, but to me it had started to feel like a prison. It was a symbol of the life I no longer wanted, a life of routine, of careful budgeting, of predictability. I wanted excitement. I wanted freedom. And Ethan made me believe that I could have it, as long as I was willing to take the risk. A single thing prevented Mark from ever consenting to the sale. Financial responsibilities fell mainly on him since he began managing household finances years ago. He handled all financial choices with great care because he would never voluntarily sell the house at any time, especially not for the way I wanted to live. Mark didn't know that the house held dual ownership with my name on it. My real estate experience provided me with the knowledge needed to sell the house secretly from Mark. I rationalized it in my head. I told myself that once the sale was done, I could explain it to him in a way that made sense. I convinced myself that I was doing something smart, something that would benefit me in the long run. I even thought that maybe, deep down, Mark would understand. Maybe he would finally see things from my perspective. So, I moved forward with it. I took care of every aspect by myself to keep Mark in the dark about my activities. I conducted secret meetings with buyers, then I moved funds into my personal banking account behind his knowledge. It was shockingly easy, almost too easy. When the sale went through, I felt nothing but relief. I had the money in my account. I had the means to finally leave and start a new life. For the first time in years, I felt completely in control. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel afraid. I felt powerful. I thought I had won. I was unaware that I had created a path which would lead to the largest failure of my existence. The moment Mark found out, everything changed. I had convinced myself that I could control the situation, that I could somehow make him see things my way. I thought he would be angry at first, but eventually he would calm down, and I could explain why selling the house was the right move. I was wrong. I had never seen my husband like that before. He wasn't just upset, he was furious. It wasn't the kind of anger that came with disappointment or frustration. It was pure betrayal. The matter didn't interest him whenever I tried to defend myself. He completely disregarded any attempts at explanation I made. Such action received its true value in his eyes. He discovered I secretly sold our family home and kept all the obtained funds for myself. In his view, I acted as no more than a selfish woman. I was a thief. Mark didn't argue with me. He didn't beg or try to reason. He went straight for the only thing that mattered: revenge. Within days, he had hired a lawyer, and before I could even process what was happening, legal documents were being delivered to me. I had no idea how much power he actually had over our marriage, our finances, and my future. I had always assumed that because I had my own income, my own career, and my name on the house, I was in control. But I was about to learn just how wrong I was. It is funny how one simple act can turn lovers to enemies. Mark accused me of stealing marital money and committing financial fraud. The situation became worse because I moved a substantial amount of money into my personal bank account. The issue extended beyond the house itself. Having grounds under the law, Mark could prove that I purposely deceived him, creating severe consequences for me. The lawsuit was brutal. I wasn't just losing the house, I was losing everything. Mark was relentless, and he wasn't interested in negotiating. He wanted me to suffer. He wanted me to feel the same level of betrayal he had felt when he found out what I had done. It all happened so fast. The budgetary funds I had believed would create my financial stability disappeared. Gone. I lost all the assets which I had accumulated during my years of work. Gone. My whole set of advantages disappeared unexpectedly before my eyes. My house loss brought back an additional requirement for me to relinquish essential parts of my remaining financial resources following the penalty rules. My attempt to secure freedom instead resulted in barely any assets after the process ended. The realization hit me too late. I had ruined my life with my own hands. And the worst part? Mark had no sympathy for me. He wasn't interested in my regret. He wanted me to feel every ounce of the destruction I had caused, and he made sure I did. The moment everything collapsed, Ethan was gone. The man who had promised me a better life, who made me believe I was meant for more, disappeared as soon as things got difficult. He didn't want to be associated with me now that I was in legal trouble, now that I was broke. He had no use for a woman who had nothing left to offer. I tried reaching out to my friends, the same women who had convinced me that I deserved better, that I was wasting my life with Mark, the ones who had cheered me on when I started living for myself, spending money freely, chasing excitement. I thought they would be there for me, but just like Ethan, they wanted nothing to do with me. They stopped answering my calls, stopped inviting me to their events. I had gone from being part of their inner circle to an embarrassment they didn't want to be associated with. Word spread quickly in the real estate world. People talked. They whispered about how I had handled my marriage, how I had sold my own home behind my husband's back, how I had been reckless with money and trust. My reputation was ruined. Clients who once saw me as professional and reliable now kept their distance. No one wanted to work with someone who had destroyed their own life through selfishness and greed. I had nothing left. No home. No money. No husband. No career. The only place I could go was my daughter's guest room. The same daughter who had once looked up to me, who had always seen me as strong and independent, now barely tolerated me. She had always admired her father, and now, after everything I had done, she saw me exactly the way everyone else did, a selfish woman who threw away a good man for nothing. Living in her house was humiliating. I had spent years believing I was above the life I had with Mark, thinking I deserved more. Now I was sleeping in a borrowed bed, in a space that wasn't mine, surrounded by reminders of how much I had lost. Every night, I was reminded of Mark's new life. He moved on so easily, rebuilding what I had destroyed. He had a new girlfriend, a new home, a new happiness that had nothing to do with me. While I was begging for scraps of stability, he was living well, unbothered by the damage I had done to myself. I thought I had it all figured out. I thought I was making the right choices. But in the end, I had nothing. And the worst part was knowing that I had no one to blame but myself. Update. I used to believe that no matter what happened, no matter how badly I messed up, there would always be a way back. That I could fix things, that I could somehow convince Mark to forgive me. Deep down, I thought he would be weak enough to beg me to stay. Maybe, after everything, he would still love me enough to take me back. But I was wrong. Mark didn't just walk away, he destroyed me. He made sure I felt the full weight of my choices. I thought I had the upper hand, that I was in control, but the truth was, I had no power at all. I was reckless with my marriage, reckless with our home, reckless with my future, and I paid the price for it. Ethan was never my escape. He was never my savior. He didn't love me. He didn't care about me. I was just another woman to him, someone fun for the moment, someone disposable. The minute things got messy, he walked away without a second thought. I gave up everything for him. My marriage, my stability, my reputation, and in the end, I meant nothing to him. There is no redemption for what I did, no way to justify it. I had a good man, a good life, a home that was secure, a future that was stable. I had everything, and I threw it away because I thought I deserved more, because I let myself believe that excitement was more important than loyalty, that thrill was worth more than stability. Now all I have left is regret. I wake up every day knowing that I destroyed my own life, that no one took anything from me, I handed it over willingly. I sit in my daughter's guest room, surrounded by the consequences of my own actions, and I have nothing left to hold on to except the bitter truth. I had a perfect life, and I ruined it. People always think karma takes years to catch up with you, that you can live recklessly for a long time before the consequences come, but that's not true. Sometimes karma doesn't wait. Sometimes you destroy yourself so fast that by the time you realize what you've done, it's already too late. And that's where I am now, too late. No way to fix it, no way to go back. Just me, alone with my mistakes, realizing that I lost everything over a man who never even looked back.